Amelia, you don't know the truth, do you? Jinwoo's voice was steady, but there was a cold edge to it that made her blood run cold. Lena froze, her fingers trembling around the glass of wine she had been holding moments before. The words hit her like a slap, the weight of their implications settling in her chest like a lead balloon. Your father didn't just sell you to me to settle a debt, he continued, his eyes never leaving hers. He traded you for something much more dangerous, something you never saw coming. But hey, before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you won't miss out on more intense stories like this. Stick with us to the end. I promise you won't want to miss what's coming. Lena's heart slammed against her ribcage as the room seemed to close in on her. Her breath hitched in her throat, and her hand shook as she lowered the glass of wine, her mind spinning with disbelief. She had known her father's debts were high, but to hear it so bluntly, to know that her entire life had been exchanged for some unknown price, it felt like a betrayal so deep she couldn't even begin to process it. "What are you talking about?" she whispered, the words barely leaving her lips. Jinwoo stepped closer, his cold eyes locking onto hers. Your father was desperate. He was losing everything, and when his creditors came to collect, he offered you. Not just as a pawn to pay off his debts, he offered you as the key to a much bigger game, something that would change the balance of power. Her mind whirled as she tried to make sense of what he was saying. Her father, the man who had always been her protector, had used her as leverage. She thought she had known her place in the world, used, abandoned, but not this. This wasn't just a cruel twist of fate. This was betrayal. Why would you? Lena struggled to form the words, her eyes flashing with rage. What did he think he could buy with me? Who are you to him? Jinwoo's lips curled into a tight smile, but there was no humor in it, just cold calculation. It wasn't just about money, Lena. It was about control, power. Your family has a stake in something much larger than you realize, something that, with your help, will tip the scales in our favor. Your father's desperation led him to make a deal with forces much darker than just debt collectors. Lena's stomach twisted as his words sank in. Forces darker than debt collectors? What kind of game had her father gotten tangled up in? And where did she fit into all of this? I'm just a pawn to you then? She asked, her voice dangerously calm. She had to keep herself composed, or she might shatter right in front of him. Jinwoo didn't flinch at her accusation. Instead, he reached for the wine glass she had set down and lifted it to his lips. You were never just a pawn. You were the prize. Your family's legacy is tied to something far bigger than you or me. You're going to learn more about it soon enough. But for now, just know that the life you thought you had was never yours to begin with. The words hit like a physical blow. Lena staggered back, her knees weak as she tried to steady herself against the marble counter. Her mind was in free fall, the pieces of her life scattering, none of it making sense anymore. Victor's hand, steady and strong, gripped her wrist before she could collapse. His touch, so familiar yet so alien, made her stomach twist even harder. Lena, you don't have to know everything right now, but you will. I'll make sure of it. He was trying to comfort her, she realized, but the only thing he was offering was a deeper prison. Her chest tightened as her emotions spiraled, a mixture of disbelief, fear, and burning anger. I want out, she said fiercely, pulling her wrist from his grip. You can't control me. You can't keep me here. Victor's eyes darkened, his jaw tightening as he stepped closer. You think you can run from this? You think you can escape what's been set in motion? His voice lowered, dangerous now. You're already in too deep. Your escape is an illusion. Lena swallowed the lump in her throat, her eyes flashing. The last thing she would ever allow was to become someone's puppet. No one, not even Jinwoo, was going to control her life. But, as much as she wanted to run, she knew it wasn't going to be that easy. She had just learned the horrifying truth that her life had never been hers to control. And now, facing the man who held the strings, she couldn't help but wonder what would happen when the puppet finally cut its cords. Lena paced the living room, the vast expanse of the penthouse feeling too small for her now. The walls seemed to close in as the weight of what Jinwoo had told her sank in. Her thoughts were a tangle of anger, fear, and disbelief, each thread more complicated than the last. What did her father owe? What kind of power had he sold her for? And yet, the more she thought about it, the more she realized there was one thing she was certain of. Victor Choi was the key. She had never been more lost in her life. He knew more than he was letting on. He was her captor, but he was also the only person who could help her make sense of the madness she was now caught in. Her phone buzzed suddenly, pulling her from her thoughts. She glanced down at the screen, her heart leaping in her chest as she saw the name Sung Joon. She hadn't heard from him since their brief conversation earlier in the day, the one where he'd tried to offer her comfort, told her she could always turn to him for support. She hadn't taken him seriously then, but now, she wondered if she'd been too hasty. "Lena, it's me. We need to talk," the message read. Her fingers hovered over the phone, but she didn't respond right away. What would she even say? Would he understand? Was he really someone she could trust? No, she couldn't drag him into this, not when she didn't even fully understand what was happening herself. Her phone buzzed again, but this time, it wasn't Sung Joon's name on the screen. It was a new message from her father. "Lena, I'm sorry. I know I failed you. Please understand, I did what I had to do. The truth is coming for all of us. You're the only one who can stop it." Lena froze. Stop it? What was he talking about? Her father, the man who had always tried to protect her, was now telling her she had to stop something? Something big, something dangerous. It didn't make sense. It couldn't. Her phone buzzed again. This time, an incoming call from Victor. Her chest tightened as she swiped to answer. "What do you want?" she demanded, her voice sharp. Victor's voice came through the speaker, smooth and controlled, but there was an underlying tension there. "I think we need to have a conversation, Lena. It's time we discuss what happens next." She bristled. "What happens next? I already know what happens next, Victor. You want me to sit quietly and let you control everything. But I won't. I refuse." "Lena." His voice softened just enough to make her pause. "This is bigger than you and me. I don't expect you to understand yet, but I promise you, you'll be better off sticking with me. You'll find out soon enough just how important you really are in all of this." Her heart raced at his words, fear and curiosity clawing at her. What could be so important? Why did she have to be involved? There was so much more to this story than she had ever known. Stay tuned, because what comes next will change everything. Make sure to like, comment, and share if you want to see how this story unfolds. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Lena stood at the window, her fingers pressing against the cool glass as she gazed out over the sprawling city below. New York, the city of endless possibilities, but all she could feel was suffocation. She tried to outrun her reality, but it was always there, creeping behind her like a shadow. No matter how far she ran, she would never be free of the web that had already ensnared her. Her phone buzzed again, and her heart skipped a beat. Another message from her father. The weight of his betrayal sat heavy in her chest, but the desperation in his words kept her from ignoring it. She tapped the screen. "I'm sorry for everything, Lena. I'll be in touch soon. You need to prepare yourself. They're coming for you." Her stomach turned, dread seeping through her. Who were they? What had her father gotten them involved in? And why was she suddenly the one who had to face the consequences of his decisions? Before she could digest the message, the door to the penthouse opened. She didn't need to look to know who it was. Victor. His presence was a physical weight, something that seemed to fill the room every time he entered. Lena turned around, forcing herself to stand tall despite the storm brewing inside her. "I assume this is your idea of a conversation," she said, her voice laced with sarcasm. Victor didn't answer right away. His dark eyes scanned her, reading her every expression, every shift in posture. He stepped closer, his suit sharp, his movements purposeful. When he finally spoke, I'm not running, she shot back, her gaze never leaving his. I'm just tired of being a pawn in your little game. Victor's lips curled into a slight smile, but there was nothing pleasant about it. You think you're the only one stuck in a game? You think I've chosen this? His voice dropped, filled with a quiet intensity that sent a chill down her spine. We're all in this together now, Lena, whether you like it or not. I don't care about your game, she snapped, her hands balling into fists at her sides. I'm not your possession. I'm not your prize. Victor took another step forward, closing the distance between them until there was only a hair's breadth of space separating them. His gaze was unrelenting, and Lena could feel the heat radiating from his body. No, you're not my possession, he said quietly, his voice steady, but there was something there, something raw, something that caught her off guard. But you're mine, whether you accept it or not. Lena's breath caught in her throat. The words didn't make sense, not in the way he had meant them, but something about the look in his eyes stirred a deep, conflicted feeling inside her. It was the same feeling that had haunted her since the night of their wedding, the night she had realized that there was something more to their connection than she could admit. Something dark, dangerous, and undeniably magnetic. I'll never be yours, Lena managed to say, though she didn't quite believe it as the words left her mouth. The tension between them was thick enough to suffocate them both. Every word, every movement felt like an invitation, and she could feel herself being pulled in. She hated herself for it, but she couldn't stop the way her pulse quickened every time he was near. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by that same coldness. Victor's expression softened just a fraction, and for a moment, Lena thought she saw something in his eyes that resembled regret. We're both trapped in a cage, Lena, he said, his voice calm now. But you're not the only one who wants to break free. So you need to decide. Either you stay and we face this together, or you walk away and face the consequences alone. Lena's heart pounded in her chest. She hated him. She hated everything he represented. And yet, she couldn't escape the pull he had over her. His words sank into her mind, stirring up emotions she didn't want to acknowledge. Consequences? What consequences could be worse than the life she was already living? The constant tension, the lies, the feeling that she was just a pawn in a game she never asked to play. She was so tired of running, tired of pretending. But at the same time, could she really stay? Could she accept the truth of what her life had become? Before she could respond, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call from Sung Joon. Lena hesitated for a moment before answering, her thumb hovering over the screen. Victor's eyes locked onto her, his expression unreadable. She knew he was watching her, waiting for her to make the decision. She pressed the button, putting the phone to her ear. Sung Joon, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Lena, where are you? You've been gone for days. Everyone's worried. We need to talk. Lena's heart sank. Worry. It was a word she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time, but hearing it from someone else, hearing it from someone who cared, that was enough to break her. She wanted to explain, to tell him everything, but the truth was too complicated, too dangerous. I'm fine, she said, her voice faltering for just a moment. But I can't... I know what you're going through, Sung Joon interrupted. I know this is hard, but you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to stay there, Lena. Whatever this is between you and him, it's not worth it. You're not stuck. You can still walk away. Victor's presence loomed over her as she listened to Sung Joon's words. Her mind was a war zone, each part of her wanting to scream, to cry, to lash out. But she couldn't. Not yet. Thank you, Lena whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was thanking him for the reassurance or the hope he had just offered. She glanced at Victor, who was standing just a few feet away, his gaze unwavering. I have to go, she said quietly, knowing it would hurt him, but not enough to stop her. He didn't respond, just watched her as she turned and walked out of the room, her heart heavy with the weight of the decisions she still hadn't made.